Stubbornness is finally killing my marriage after 9 years. Hi all. I'm posting this as war-torn and discouraged husband of 9 years. Last night my wife and I had another fight so escalated it became physical, pushing. We have both been in survival mode, with drained emotional bank accounts for a few years, and we have been in counseling all the while. The days of affection and compassion are far behind us and my wife's desire is gone. We haven't spoken since our fight, and due to the frequency and intensity, I'm at a total loss for how to move forward. Every recent escalation results in her suggesting divorce, at which point I disengage from the fight, which further infuriates her. I understand technically a fighting wife is a wife who is engaged, but threatening divorce is a line I don't cross. It communicates to me she would rather throw an entire marriage in the trash than set aside her pride to resolve a conflict. Last night we screamed in each other's faces. She threatened divorce, and then tried to physically pull me back into the room when I walked away. It was a conflicting message, but it's clear she can't effectively communicate with her words, and I'm so exhausted from trying to read between the lines while getting zero understanding in return. Am I married to an adult or a child? The fights usually spark from a variety of seemingly harmless topics, often caused by somebody expressing feelings and then being invalidated by the other person. She really struggles to distinguish between feelings and behaviors. My threshold to receive and be blamed for a BTCHY tone/yelling/rude delivery is reducing every passing day. So when she snaps about pet peeve number 157, I tend to get defensive. If you ask me, I'm working on it. If you ask her, I haven't improved at all. Last night specifically, she was making demands about my daughter's bedtime routine, and I told her I didn't like that she was dictating what to do. Dictate is a trigger word, evidently. Over the course of the escalation, I reiterated multiple times that I just needed to hear her say, "I'm sorry that came across bossy," but she is so prideful and stubborn she would rather defend, justify herself, and ultimately threaten divorce than take a moment to understand where I'm coming from. Is there anything I can really do? I'm literally at a fing loss here at what I can do. But all I repeatedly asked for is to hear her say, "I see where you're coming from. I didn't mean to be bossy. Let's work together on X." Why does standing firm in that simple request elicit an entire psychological breakdown? Perhaps I am finally being honest that I lack the desire to deal with a stubborn partner. I cannot make the necessary sacrifice because I deserve some reciprocation. Every dispute cannot be diffused by me giving in, especially when I am initiating the fing concern in the first place. I don't think my wife has ever had the patience/emotional intelligence to have a calm, rational disagreement, and she has way too much pride to just be submissive in any given conversation. It is always a heated battle with a clear winner and loser. A decade ago, I admired this strong-willed attitude, but living with it has required dignity-draining levels of compromise. I don't know if it's worth losing myself to save the marriage. She tells me I am waiting for her to initiate divorce so I can claim a victory on not giving up on our marriage. I am terrified of what a divorce will do to my daughter's upbringing. I don't even want a divorce, but it seems my only other option is to sacrifice my basic needs of validation and respect. And now to next story, story 2. I feel like we're failing at life. Apologies for the long post. I guess I have a lot to get off my chest, and it is hard with no friends or support system. I'm not a keeping up with the Jones type of person and really don't compare myself to others. I rarely get in social media, and when I do, it's only for family stuff. I have like 40 FB friends and follow 17 people on Instagram. Despite this, I can't help but feel miserable when I think about life. Feel like we're so behind. Feel so stressed out. It is definitely worth mentioning that I always felt this way long before my husband came around. But either way, those feelings are here. My husband, 41, and I, 32, just got married a little more than a year ago. We've been together for about 7 years. When we first met, I had been single for a while, was renting a cheap apartment, $450 rent, and had a reasonable amount of money saved up for an emergency fund. I made about $40,000 per year, but still managed to keep a little $15,000 chunk because I liked the peace of mind it provided me, and it came in handy many times for emergencies. About a year into our relationship, my husband lost his job due to COVID. He started living off what I thought was savings. He ran out of savings pretty quickly and wound up borrowing money/charging credit cards. A few months into this, his car blew up because he was not getting oil changes and actually drove it for weeks with an oil leak. His engine blew the same week his final payment was due, so he paid the car off just to take it to a scrapyard. He didn't think about fixing the car, didn't consider his options at all, and had the car turned into a cube before he could even think through everything. Got $300 for a 2015 Lincoln MKX. I offered to buy him a beater car to hold him over until he could get his life back in order. His credit was terrible at this point because his cards were maxed and he still had no job or savings. So I shelled out like $6,000 from my emergency fund to buy a car for him to use. Now, he didn't have a job when we got this car, so I added him as an AU on my cards and started paying for more stuff. I was able to see the reality of how badly he was struggling and wanted to help him. He ended up needing another new car about a year later and had been working a job for about 10 months at this point, making $150,000, so I agreed to finance a vehicle in my name because his credit was still bad. His payment is now 2x as much as mine. This doesn't necessarily cause financial strain due to our income, but raises a bigger question of concern. I wonder if my husband will ever be proactive about his life instead of making quick decisions to get himself out of the holes he ends up in. The reason I say this is because I had guidelines and standards when purchasing my car. I didn't know my husband when I bought it, but I had done research and knew how to buy the newest car for the cheapest price. I ended up saving up for months for a down payment outside of my emergency fund and bought a 3-year-old car with about 20,000 miles. It was far from an impulsive decision. My husband wanted a white car and he needed one that day, so his only option was the brand new model that had just been delivered with 2 miles on it because it was the only white one they had. No questions or discussion, just made a decision and ready to move forward just like that. Not even questioning where the funds for the down payment would be coming from. We didn't make a down payment because we had no extra funds due to not planning for this. This applies to so many other areas of our life as well. He didn't file his taxes for the first 3 years that I knew him because he had so much stuff going on and life was such a mess, and he enjoyed spending all his time with me. His life really was a mess, and I think my head would have exploded if I had to deal with everything he was at the time. But now, well, it's 6 years later and those taxes still aren't filed. I worked up a plan about 2 years ago to get everything tied up, and I used to hound him and stress myself sick in order to stay on track. That was 2 years ago, and I am still waiting for him to find the time to complete step 1 of the recovery plan. I can't do it for him because at this point, he just needs information from bank accounts that have nothing to do with me. So he has to be the one to call and make the request. Collecting unclaimed funds from a house that he allowed to go into foreclosure and sell above value in an auction is one of these things. Since his taxes aren't filed, it also causes many other issues for us. For instance, when trying to get pre-approvals for a mortgage, they ask for tax returns to see your income over the years. My husband only has a tax return for 2022 and 2023. All other years are just not filed. Most mortgage companies want to go back at least 4 years. He doesn't have that. I don't even know if I have the ability to get a mortgage in my own name when considering my marriage to him and my income when he has such bad credit and can't even prove the money he does make. Speaking of mortgage, we currently rent a brand new townhome for $2,000 a month, very high for the area we live, and our lease is set to expire in 6 months. Now, remember when I said my rent was $450 when I met him? I lived above a man who sold crack and shared my porch with the neighbor prostitutes. Who do you think made the decision to live in an HOA, despite doing no planning, running no calculations, or giving it any thought outside of, I want this? To be fair, he has a child from a precious relationship, so my old standards of living would not be safe for said child, especially when we can provide them with more, but $1,550 more? Was not expecting that. And the best part? That $15,000 emergency fund of mine that always kept me feeling comfortable? Well, it started dwindling when we joined finances and has never been built back up. I don't even have the rent saved for this place for next month if something were to happen to my husband. We have no health insurance, no life insurance, and no job security. My husband's $150,000 is all commission-based, so if he stops, so do the paychecks. If he ended up in the hospital, I really don't know what I'd do. My parents are dirt poor, so no help available there. Yes, we bring in over $190,000 and have consistently for the past, almost 3 years, but we live like rappers and have nothing saved up. Not for an emergency, not for next month's rent, not for a house, not for SHIT. We actually have about $5,000 worth of debt because I wanted to go on a nice vacation for our marriage instead of having a wedding and all that. We decided to do it for X date. X kept getting closer and closer, and we still had nothing saved up and I was stress sick. The down payment was due on our reservation, so I took out a loan at a bank in order for us to go. I originally thought we'd save and pay off the loan over the next few months, but it's been over a year and that loan balance hasn't even seen a $1 additional payment. That's the only vacation we've ever taken in 5 years. A vacation wedding with just the two of us that cost less than $10,000. We don't take his son, and I didn't even buy a fancy dress, and we still had to finance it. Finance the ring too, of course, and had plans to have a reception but never got around to it because it just wasn't prioritized by both of us. We've never taken his son on a vacation. My credit was always in the 800s, but has been suffering since I added him as an AU and have such high balances posting every month. We have avoided CC debt up until now as we always pay off the balances, but he never helps me to let them post with low balances so that my score isn't impacted. There is a way we could rotate usage of 3 difference cards and never have a balance post, what I used to, but I've gone through it so many times with him and it's just not a priority so he won't do it. Just feels like nagging at this point. He isn't registered to vote. He watches the news every night and gets emotional about how scared he is for me/women/America in general. Yet he won't prioritize the minutes it takes to correct his voter registration to be able to get off the couch and go make a difference when it's time. I bought a bike 2 years ago for myself because he mentioned it being something he would enjoy doing, and I had been craving the idea of forming some sort of partnership with him over anything. So I bought the bike and found a cool shop that had lots of nice options for him at discounted rates due to being an overstock store. I am still waiting for him to find the time to meet me at the bike store so that he can find one that is comfortable for him. He's getting older, and so is his other child. I'd like to have a kid with him, and he said he would like to have one as well, yet with no house and no savings and we're 5 years in. Just starting to seem unrealistic since we haven't been able to plan for it as of yet. We also haven't been to the doctor or received medical attention/checkups of any kind in the past 5 years. I had to have an emergency root canal, but other than that, I have other teeth rotting and know he does too, but here we sit, spending money on toys and clothes and games for our child and putting none of it away for ourselves. He wants child to go to a private school soon. $25,000 yearly tuition. He's never out away $1 for it. Just all sorts of things like this. Seems like it's a matter of time before the world comes crashing down on us, and I'm starting to resent my husband for leaving us so unprepared. I've tried to have the conversations. I've tried to take the initiative. I've tried to do it in my own, but I can't. I need a partner, and it just feels kind he refuses in every single way. I have heart cramps that I tell him about often, and he's never mentioned purchasing or prioritizing health insurance or a doctor's visit. He spends our money before I can put any of it away. He doesn't do a single thing around the house because he works more and makes more. Remember when I had no job and could come home from work and I'd be folding the laundry in a spotless house? He literally doesn't even open a trash can most days. Leaves his wrappers/food/cups/dishes lay wherever he was sitting when he enjoyed them and waits for me to come along. I have no friends because we do nothing and go nowhere, and outside of working and keeping up with the house, I barely even have the energy to feed myself most days. We've never had a family-planned home-cooked meal where we all sat down and ate together. Sure, there's the occasional day we all want something from Taco Bell and bring it home to eat at the same time. But that's about it.